Living History, an interview with Dolores Cook. Dolores was born August 19th in Kalamazoo, Michigan, at Borgess Hospital. The year was 1935. She has lived 86 years. Dolores proceeded to tell a story about turning 80. Her son Dave called her and said, "Mom, you're 79, right?" She said, "No, dear, I'm 80. "Well, when were you born?" he asked. She thinks he didn't want her to be 80. "But now look at me. I'm 86, she states. When asked if her parents told her anything about the day she was born, she stated, "Not that I remember, but 12 months and 12 days later, my sister Eileen was born on a very hot day," Mother had said. She lived in Parchment when she was very young, but in Kalamazoo area for her whole life, just down the street from where she lives now. Her father worked at the paper mill, but saved up money to buy land in the area where they had a small farm. Her mother was quite the saver, which allowed them to buy the land they did. Dolores had 5 siblings growing up, 1 older brother, Bucky, and 3 younger sisters, Eileen, Phyllis, and Diana. Life was good growing up out in the country, peaceful living, and good neighbors, although she claims she had missed out on some of the things that the kids in town had. Her home was conveniently located right next to the schoolhouse. It was small, only 4 people in her class. Later, schools consolidated with other local schools. She then attended Plainwell, which was a little bigger than her previous school, with a class now that consisted of 16 to 20 students. Dolores graduated Plainwell High School 20 years after her dad did. Dolores didn't know if she had any heroes other than her dad. Her cousin was a Marine who was killed in World War II. She also stated she loved her Uncle Clarence, the father of the killed Marine. She had fond memories of riding the hay chute in the neighbor's barn down to the cows with her siblings. The farmer was not happy. Also, she will never forget the time she went home for lunch from school. Running along the fence, she fell into a ditch and landed in some tall grass where snakes were sleeping. She started to run while crying, trying to get home. During the run home, she saw a blue racer along the fence, slithering alongside of her. She said the story seemed too far-fetched for others to believe her. From that moment, her brother would tease her and her sisters with dead snakes. She wants nothing to do with snakes to this day. In high school, she witnessed the girls around her experience a lot of rejection. There was so much competition, especially among girls, always vying for the boys' attention. This created a lot of undue stress of dating and desire, but Dolores didn't get caught up in the drama. She enjoyed the football games, but it was hard to go because they lived in the country. She spent a lot of time with her best friend, who would accompany her in long walks to the football games. She said she was not involved in many extracurricular activities, but enjoyed reading. Her love for reading landed her a job in the school library. Dolores dated very little before she met her husband. She briefly dated a fellow, not from her school, that would take her to the drive-in. Dolores met Donald, her future husband, through her older brother. It was pretty serious between the couple from the beginning. They dated for a year before they married. She recalled a memory of the moment she knew this was her life partner. "I had rollers in my hair that night we met, but he didn't seem to mind. He even took me to pick up a roast for Mother. I thought to myself, if he can go out with me in public with rollers in my hair to pick up a roast for Mother, he's a keeper." Starting right after high school, her first job was at Atlas Press working with the treasurer dealing with figures. She chuckled when she recalled a weekly income of $25. Her last job was in the hospital as a nurse, ending at the age of 46. She missed working with patients, but not certain protocols issued by the hospital. At the hospital, Dolores met her lifelong friend Nancy. Picking up the art of crocheting, Dolores would make afghans and scarves. She also found a knack for quilting, making most of her grandchildren blankets and Christmas stockings. Due to arthritis, she can no longer quilt or crochet, but she still loves to read and do puzzles. World War II had ended when she was at the age of 10. Some of her family members were in the war. She claimed she was fearful of airplanes, unsure if it could be an attack on the U.S. Dolores saw the repercussions of the war on the home front, especially when the soldiers returned home. She remembers there was a big housing problem after the war. Houses were put up quickly, but the color of the door would be the only distinguishable feature. Some friends would tell stories about their husbands that struggled with PTSD. Other world events included the assassination of JFK and the Iraq Wars. She will never forget staring at the TV as she folded diapers, learning about JFK's death. Dolores reads about the Civil War nowadays, concerned that children aren't really learning the history. She states, "History repeats itself." There were many changes in her lifetime, but the most impactful was the death of her husband, Donald Eugene Cook, with her parents and brother not too far behind. She also cherished the moment of marriage. She states, "As society, we have lost compassion and caring for others. People are selfish, self-centered. Values have changed. People have become more materialistic and violent." When asked, "How has family life changed?" she said, "Depends on where you live. Many people have no family life. Children can't be left alone. Selfishness can impact parenting. People don't have their priorities straight." When asked what she thinks about the most important problems that the world faces today, she quickly said, "A lot. Poverty, COVID and people's reaction to it, general unrest, evil in the world, hatred, violence, not caring for others, and lack of faith. The best thing about getting older is not having to work anymore. Resumes and job hunting seem daunting. The worst thing are loss of health and loved ones." She states you must accept that life will end, but people still feel lonely. She said she feels blessed because she's had a good life. It's hard to encapsulate in one piece of advice, but suggests to impress on younger people to be considerate, compassionate, and understanding with other people. Appreciate different points of view and to trust the Lord. She has relied heavily on her faith throughout her life. I found it very surprising that Dolores' teenage years mirrors the same issues that teenagers nowadays experience. In general, teenagers can be cruel. Add that with relationships and trying to fit in, it could lead to a very stressful time in our lives. I learned that interviewing an older adult can be a learning experience about our history and how society was in certain time periods. Values have changed and priorities are lost within generations, as other things may influence what is important. I also learned that we experience a lot of the same hardships. Throughout life, we just have our own way of internalizing them. With the loss of Dolores' life partner, she lives alone. Because she lives miles away from others, she experiences being lonely. It was such a delight to watch Dolores not conform to the stereotype that older people have a poor memory. After she was asked a question, she would stare off, replaying the memory in her head. Some memories experience different emotions. Nonetheless, she would always revert to a smile after revealing some of those stored memories. I was quite honestly jealous of the capability to recall memories. If the roles were reversed, I couldn't do the same. After the interview, I realized I was so captivated with the life of Dolores I forgot to take pictures. I called her to ask if she would be able to send pictures. Dolores stated, "I'm not too sure if I could know how to do that. Her understanding of technology isn't the best, but after meeting her, I know that she is definitely capable. She doesn't have to use it often and doesn't really have anyone around to teach her." So if you ask me, that stereotype is false as well. Given the opportunity, Dolores could be more than adequate with the use of technology. I'm happy to report that Dolores still hasn't stopped raving about the experience she and I had. She was happy to have company and the opportunity to share details of her life with someone. This assignment brought her great joy in personally remembering some of her life experiences that had led her to the 86 years of age. I am truly glad to have taken part of a happy moment of Dolores' life. It was an honor to listen and learn from her. Her experience has allowed me to think deeper about my own and have a greater appreciation to those who have lived a longer life than I.